Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we're going to be talking about the annoyingly satisfied wife and the husband who wants more, which is the inverse of the annoyingly satisfied husband, and the wife who wants more, which is one of the couples in counseling that I've written about and talked about, and which resonates the most with my clients. So there's an inverse of that, and if you didn't guess, with men it has to do with sex. So we'll talk about that. This is another common couple that I see now. So versus, I guess, when I was younger, I was seeing more of the annoyingly satisfied husband people. Well, I think something changed in the drinking water, that that men think now versus 10 years ago, they're, 10 years older on average, the people who will come to see me. And so the men are 10 years more dissatisfied with their sex lives. So they'll come now versus 10 years ago. So before we get to that, please do subscribe. I have one coming out, which has already come out, on binge eating and binge drinking as escape tools. So if those are anything that you engage in or that you know anybody who engages in, then listen and subscribe. So getting to the topic at hand, so obviously you can go back and listen to the annoyingly satisfied husband and the wife who wants more, but this is the couple, which is very common in counseling, where the woman wants more out of the marriage. She wants more closeness, more connection. She wants them to evolve together and grow as people. She's probably in her own therapy. She wants him to be in his own therapy. She no longer thinks it's okay that he just goes out, earns money, and comes home. She's probably earning money by now too, and she wants to have a greater and deeper connection. That is a relationship that's more in line with how she feels now versus two people just, kind of co-parenting real small kids together and trying to survive. Now that the kids are older, she wants something that feels more like an intimate partnership of equals that are growing and evolving together intellectually and emotionally, and frequently sexually, but that is usually not the number one complaint in this regard. It's more about emotional and intellectual compatibility that the woman no longer feels is there. As they've gotten older, they've grown. She feels she's grown in one direction, he may have just stagnated in another, and she's bored, Now, a direct corollary to this are the many men that I see, really not corollary. You talk too much, you start using the wrong words. A counterpoint to this is the men that are in the same situation, except it's like that game where everything you say, you put in bed afterwards. So the men want a companion that develops and grows with them in bed, that wants to evolve in bed, that is curious about the world in bed, and that wants a new identity in bed. It's true, though. So these men come in and they're real tired with the status quo. They're tired of the status quo, the missionary or, possibly doggy-style sex every couple of weeks, and they want to have a real lover, a partner that is interested and curious and developing and exploring and pushing boundaries and having a new identity as a couple who, is pretty sexual and explores fantasies and goes outside comfort zones and, talks about new things and tries new things, etc., etc. But so the men, whoever the partner is who wants more in whatever way they want it, this is usually because they're in midlife. They don't have much of a purpose and a passion as the way that they used to in the kids or the family or even the career for these men. They kind of got to a place where they're happy in their career. So almost the only thing that they think could stand improvement and the only kind of context that they can see themselves growing and changing in such a visceral way is the sex life. And since they don't want to be unfaithful, the only person they could do it with is the woman. So this is much like the women frequently feel like they had like a lot of, it's really probably the same for the women, the kids, and the men career. So the man threw himself wholly into his career. It was like so challenging, made him think of himself in different ways, a lot of growth, a lot of change as a man, a whole new identity. And now he's got there, to whatever higher level. And now the only thing that he could think about that would make him so kind of transformed and interested in his life again would be to change the sex life. And so for the woman, while she may have changed herself, pulled herself inside out to be like the best mother that she could be, and thought about herself, introspected and done all of this work on herself to be like the best mother of young children and then older children, well, when the children get a little older than that, we're talking about late elementary, middle school, high school, then she's like, she wants that kind of same kind of feeling of personal fulfillment via a connection with another. And the only person she got left is that man. So she's going to throw herself into that. And the way that a person defines their identity is different in earlier stages of the relationship. It's not so much based solely on the partner. There's a lot more stuff going on. But when you've accomplished various goals that you've had, such as raising healthy, happy children or getting to a certain place in your career, and women can do this when they get to a certain place in their career as well, and men can throw themselves into the kids. I'm just saying the main effects of what I see based on gender generally. Well, then once that's done, well, what's left? If you want to remain faithful and you want to remain kind of in a normative, conventional family situation, you can't just go backpack across Tibet. You can't just decide to quit your job and live in an RV and travel. You can't do a lot of shit if you want to kind of stay in one place for the stability of your children and maintain your career. So within the bounds of conventionality, what is the only way that people can get this sort of adventure without having an affair, which is what people used to do before having affairs was thought of as literally the worst thing in the world? Well, sex. But again, since affairs are now terrible, they weren't always. Read The State of Affairs by Esther Perel. Read The Erotic Silence of the American Housewife. There's a title. There's lots of books you can read on like how different infidelity is thought of now versus years ago. But since the social norm is that we're not allowed to do it anymore, then now, what can you do? You basically got to have an affair with your spouse. And for a woman, that manifests primarily emotionally, and for a man, primarily physically. Although, of course, the physical leads to the emotional, and the emotional leads to the physical in both cases. So both people, what this really is a person who deeply wants to have an affair or to be with somebody else. But they can't because they fuck up the whole fucking family that they worked so hard to build. So there are people who can understand this drive in their spouse, and they can have the emotional or physical affair. They can let themselves get kind of caught up in it, and the man can read the books on marriage and connection, and the woman can dress up in latex or whatever the fuck he wants, and these people are happier. But then, not like they ever get any tremendous deep personal fulfillment on their own from this, but they see that the partner, who is the engine of the driver of the change, does become happier and does seem more fulfilled in their life via this exploration of self that is manifests either physically or emotionally or both. And people that can't, that are like, basically just leave me alone. I'm up to the stage of my life where I don't want to deal with this bullshit anymore. I just want to rest and enjoy what I've made in my life and the place that I've gotten to. These people usually end up, unhappily partnered. And this can lead to divorce when one person is moving toward growth and change and the other person isn't. Now, the issue, the sticking point here when it's men that are the driver of change is they're frequently wanting women to act in a way completely antithetical to where their hormones and biology are at that juncture. So whereas any man can read a fucking book on marriage, or take some personality tests or join her at a sculpting class or whatever she thinks would make him more into a true partner, than what he's currently doing of sitting on the couch and scratching himself. But the woman, she just can't function that way physically anymore. She can try to put on the clothes and to be a game sport about whatever sexual endeavor he wants, but frequently this is shit that she was never doing, and now he feels like this is his last chance to, self-develop in the sexual arena, and if he wants to remain monogamous, and frequently does, then she is the only person with whom he could do it, and therefore the bottleneck that is stopping him from, in his mind, this pinnacle of self-evolution. So this really isn't fair. But then again, love isn't fair, relationships aren't fair. My job is to kind of tell you what goes on and maybe some ways to work around these basic human patterns that I see in couples, right? So what I tend to see is that the more game and giving the woman is, then the better this goes. But if there's some men that particularly have a narcissistic streak that wants so much more than any woman could really give at the stage of life, that it's better, honestly, that they split over the long term if he's going to continue to be so unfulfilled and to wish that she would be acting like a 25-year-old sex goddess, because that's not going to happen. And it's the same thing, honestly, with the annoyingly satisfied husband and the wife who wants more. There's plenty of women who have a narcissistic streak that don't feel any better when the guy reads some books on marriage and goes to counseling and takes up, yoga with her, and instead want him to basically turn into a completely other person out of a Nicholas Sparks romance novel. And these people are better off splitting too, eventually. So there's differing views on whether that should happen before or after the kids are out of the house. But if you are with somebody that no matter what you do, including going to counseling, they just cannot get around the fact that you are obstructing them from personal fulfillment and growth, well, don't stay in that situation, because it's not going to work. So as a partner, you try to go to the limits of what you can do. And this could be more than you think currently. So like a woman who in any way condescends to the guy's, desire for a sexually open and adventurous life needs to re-examine those assumptions. Is this worth ending your marriage over? The fact that you think it's gross to, do whatever the fuck? Remember, dress up like a fuzzy rabbit or whatever I said in the other podcast? But probably not. But then again, if you are like a 55-year-old woman and the guy's like, I want you, to greet me naked every day and to do this and to do that, and then we're going to bring in a third. Well, sometimes you got to be like, hasta la vista, best of luck, trying to, with half your income, seduce a younger woman into doing these things. And I say half your income because that's what it would be after the divorce. But it's the same thing for a woman. Again, what's good for the goose, etc. If there is a guy whose wife is consistently up his ass to change and grow, and he's been to years of counseling and he's tried to change, he's gotten his own individual therapist, and she still says that she just doesn't click with him, or he's not trying, or he's stopping her from being in the kind of relationship that she wants, this is the same hasta la vista, and see if she could find somebody else that does it for her with half of y'all's income, which is possible that she can, and it's possible that the guy can find the sex goddess of his dreams as well. But the point is, there's always something to sacrifice. Obviously, the rest of the relationship, the long history, possibly deep connection, the children having one place to come home to, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, very real sorts of pragmatic things like the finances that I'm talking about, or, where y'all are going to live, or like what have you. But if you deeply feel that your relationship is the kind of the proving ground for your personal self-development, then that's something to rethink. So individual therapy and a lot of introspection can help you figure out, are you, whether you're the woman in this situation or the man in this situation, when you're the partner who, quote, wants more, are you setting a person up to fail? Are your expectations even remotely normal for a spouse, like your spouse, of their age and station and personality? Is what you want even possible at all? Because listen, you deserve to get what you want, and as much as everybody in our self-centered society deserves to get what they want. But sometimes if your expectations are way too high, you're not aware of it, then you could get yourself into a bad situation where, for example, you divorce your partner and then you wait for the Nicholas Sparks romantic character to arrive, or the 25-year-old sex goddess that somehow doesn't want you for your money despite you being 55, or whatever the case may be. to manifest in your life like an apparition, and they may not happen to you because they may not exist. No such person may be able to meet these standards that you have created. So individual therapy can help people realize, are your expectations for your spouse normal? Are we dealing with a spouse who is recalcitrant and can change but doesn't want to, but may be able to if they understand how important this change and growth is, whether it's emotional, physical, sexual? Or have you basically fallen out of love with your spouse and you're like putting them through the ringer when you're going to end up leaving them anyway and or making the rest of their life miserable because they just cannot be who you want, in which case it's kinder to get out quicker. And not to do the years of counseling, et cetera, if you already know that this person is not the person with whom you can be happy long term. But the major question is to ask, what is it about your life? What can you do on your own internally such that you don't have to use the relationship as like your like primary vehicle of self-development, but rather yourself can do that by yourself. You can do that. You can figure out who you want to be spiritually, career-wise, physically. Do you want to be somebody that travels and backpacks through Tibet? Maybe you do. Maybe your spouse would welcome you going to Tibet. You wouldn't be up their ass all the time about this shit. And then you could come back and have more of a normative relationship after you got it out of your system. I've seen things like that happen, But what you want to think about is, do you really want to be with this person long term and it's just basically you're having some sort of midlife crisis? Or have you been unhappy for a very long time? It's just, it's now kind of the breaking point because this is the first time you could even subconsciously picture leaving because the children have gotten to be the age that you could picture it finally. And now you are just somehow in your mind dragging them through like these fiery hoops because you want to say in your mind, I did everything I could before I got to a divorce. But you kind of know that you're going to leave this person. Or are you somebody that just wants a little bit of a deeper, closer relationship, whether that's sexually or emotionally, and therapy really could help, and you're going into it loving this person, wanting to work on it, and thinking that maybe, in fact, it could be worked on. So there's 3 different options. So the first is the person that's really just unhappy with themselves and using the relationship as a manifestation of this deep internal unhappiness and frustration and feeling stuck in their own life. So that's a person who'd go to individual therapy. The next is a person that's using all of these things about growth and change as like a cover-up for the fact that they are really deeply not in love with their spouse anymore. They do not want to stay together, but they want to be somebody who tried everything before divorce. So are you that person, or are you the person that's worked through your own stuff? You're dealing with your own midlife issues, crises, what have you, existential angst, and you really do genuinely hope that with a little bit of genuine change and introspection, your partner may become somebody who you want to be with for the rest of your life, and you could visualize yourselves as a happy couple without your partner changing their entire personality and or sexual preferences and or intellectual, literally IQ or whatever. So think about it deeply if you're in this situation, because I do get these couples frequently, and hopefully this gave you a lot to think about. Please do follow me on TikTok now. I'm so trendy and young. Just kidding. I'm just on TikTok. Neither trendy nor young. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.